Hey friends, it's me, Em again, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things sinister. If you are interested in true crime, or if you like all things horror related, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can join me for some morbid conversation. And today we're going to jump back into another true crime story. I know it's been a few videos since we've posted a full-length story on true crime, and so that's what we're going to be doing today. And I will tell you, this is a pretty heavy one. This one, I know they're all heartbreaking and I know that they're all sad, but this one just, it has another layer of heartbreak to it, which you'll see once we get into it. It made me so sad. They all make me so sad, but this one is just really heavy. And so with that being said, we are going to get into it and we are going to go into the absolutely adorable part of the story first. And we are going to set up this really sweet romantic background. So the adorable part of our story actually began many, many years ago before Reggie and Carol Sumner would end up getting married. And this begins back when they were in high school, and they were actually high school sweethearts, and they were dating when they went to school together in the late 1950s, early 1960s. They were high school sweethearts, and they were dating way back then. Unfortunately, after high school ended, the two of them would end up going their separate ways. Reggie would join the Navy, and he would end up getting married to someone besides Carol. And likewise, Carol would end up going her separate way. She would also get married. She would end up having children. But unfortunately for Carol, the man that she married was pretty abusive, and she did end up divorcing him sometime into their marriage. Now, this is where it's so freaking wholesome. This beginning is so wholesome. So in the year 2000, again, they dated in the 1950s, 1960s, late 1950s, early 1960s. In the year 2000, one of them would end up calling customer service for their cable company. Reggie would call customer service for his cable company. And who would be the customer service representative to answer the phone, but none other than Carol? His high school sweetheart was the customer service rep, and they rekindled there on the phone. Right. So Reggie was single at the time. He did end up becoming single. And Carol was single at the time. Like I said, she ended up divorcing her husband and she never remarried. So they were both single, and they rekindled this spark over the phone 40 or 50 years after they were dating. And they ended up setting up a date, and they met up, and the spark was there. They were still in love. And within that year, after that customer service phone call, the two of them would end up getting married, which is just precious. To me, that is just so freaking wholesome and so precious. So the couple would end up settling in a home together in Ladson, South Carolina. And that is where they would end up meeting their neighbor, Tiffany and Cole. So Tiffany was very lucky to have Reggie and Carol as neighbors because they treated her so well. From my understanding, Tiffany didn't have the best home life, but Reggie and Carol really treated her almost like a daughter. They were very kind to her, very compassionate to her. When she needed a vehicle, they actually not only agreed to sell their vehicle to Tiffany, but they agreed to sell it to her on payments, so she wouldn't have to pay for it in one lump sum. They would give her the car and allow her to make payments on it. It was just a really good relationship that this couple had with their neighbor, Tiffany. Now, the couple had some pretty bad health problems. Reggie had a really bad case of diabetes. Carol was actually undergoing chemotherapy. She had cancer. And the two of them decided that now is the time. They were going to retire to Florida, and they were going to be moving to Jacksonville, Florida. They thought it was in the best interest of their personal lives and for their health. They thought that they would be able to have better success there in Florida. So unfortunately, that meant that they would be moving away from Tiffany. Tiffany was still making payments on the car, and the Sumners told her, hey, our door is always open. You can call us anytime. You can visit us anytime. You can, if you need a place to stay, if you ever are down in Florida, let us know. We love you, Tiffany, and we want to keep you in our life. And they did have that connection where they were going to be in her life because she still owed money on this car. So Tiffany would continue to make payments on this car, and sometimes she would even drive the payments to Florida to drop the payments off in person and visit with Reggie and Carol. And when she finally made the final payment on this car, she needed to go to Florida so that way they could exchange the paperwork on the car, transfer ownership over to the car, kind of finalize everything. So Tiffany would end up traveling to Florida to finalize all the paperwork on this car. And when she would go, she decided that she would bring her then boyfriend, Michael Jackson, which is his real name. But it's not that one. Obviously, it's not that one. But she would bring her boyfriend, Michael, with her to meet the Sumners and to stay there for a day or two to visit. Now, when they made it to the Sumners' home, the couple was warm and welcoming as they always were. They invited Tiffany and Michael in. They got them drinks and caught up with them. They were just chatting like they did all the time with Tiffany. Through conversation, the Sumners had mentioned that they did make a profit off of selling their home, and they profited a good chunk. It was almost $100,000 that they profited off of. So they were pretty pleased with that. They were going to be able to afford their lifestyle. They were going to be able to afford without worrying about bills. It was a good thing for the two of them. Unfortunately for them, hearing this made Tiffany's boyfriend, Michael, his ears perked up. And later on that night, when he and Tiffany were alone together, he told Tiffany that he thought the two of them should rob the Sumners, which Tiffany agreed to. The plan would end up spiraling from just robbing the Sumners to not only robbing and burglarizing the Sumners. Michael decided that they would also need to die, and he had planned to murder Carol and Reggie. And Tiffany also agreed to this. So Tiffany and Michael would end up discussing these plans with a friend of theirs named Alan Wade, and Alan was also on board with this idea. And Alan would end up recruiting one of his friends named Bruce Nixon, who, again, was also on board with this idea. So the foursome would end up preparing for this by watching the Sumners' household a couple days before they actually planned on going in and carrying out their plan. They would watch the household to check for any kind of regularities within their schedule. And also in preparation, they would buy things like gloves, duct tape, plastic sheeting, the works, basically a kill kit. Finally, on July 8th of 2005, Tiffany would end up renting a vehicle in South Carolina, and the four of them would drive the vehicle back to Jacksonville, Florida, where Tiffany and Michael would wait in the car because the Sumners would recognize them. They were familiar with them. So they would wait in the car while they sent Bruce and Alan to the door to see if they could get inside the Sumners' home under the ruse of needing to use their phone. And because the Sumners were such good people, such good, wholesome, helpful, kind, caring people, when they answered the door and they heard that these two men needed to borrow a phone, they had no problems letting them come into their home to borrow their phone. So once Alan and Bruce were inside the couple's home, they would end up basically attacking Reggie and Carol, and they would end up restraining the couple. And once they were restrained, they would go through the house, burglarizing the house, looking for anything that they could take that was of value. And once they had gone through the house to their satisfaction, they would end up taking the couple to their garage and forcing them into the trunk of their own vehicle. At which point, they would end up getting in that car and pulling out of the driveway, and Michael and Tiffany would follow behind them in the rented vehicle. Now, the plan was for them to follow and stay close because if there were any cops in the area, Tiffany and Michael had planned on purposely speeding to get pulled over to contain the cops so that no cops would end up following Bruce and Alan. They didn't end up needing to do that. There were no cops around, but they had a contingency plan in place just in case there were any cops around. But there wasn't. So the four of them would end up taking Reggie and Carol to a place in Georgia and getting them out of the vehicle. And when they got them out of the trunk, they were met with a 6-foot grave that the foursome had dug days in advance. And they didn't kill them. It's not like they put a bullet in their head. It's not like they slit their throat. They didn't put them out of their misery. No. What they did to these poor, old, health-riddled people was they shoved them into that grave, and due to their health conditions and due to their restraints, they weren't able to do anything about it. They fell in the grave and they were stuck at the bottom of this 6-foot grave. The foursome would then end up burying this couple alive, which is just awful. Oh my gosh, just awful. Autopsies would later go to show that that is what killed them. It wasn't a heart attack or stress or anything. Dirt in their airways is what caused their death. They suffocated to death with dirt in their throat. So they would end up abandoning the Sumner's car, and they would pawn the things that they stole out of the Sumner's home, and they would end up using the Sumner's ATM card and their PIN number that they got by threatening the couple to withdraw around $5,000 over the course of the next few days. It wasn't until Carol's daughter would end up contacting the police and filing a missing persons report that an official search would end up beginning for the couple. Police would end up finding the Sumner's abandoned vehicle, and once they did, they would find one of Michael's fingerprints inside the vehicle. They would also find Tiffany, Michael, and Alan at a motel room that they had checked out using the Sumner's banking information, which, how dumb do you have to be? I mean, I could never be obviously, I'm never going to murder somebody and steal their banking information. But if you were going to do that, I feel like it's just asking to be caught to end up using that information to rent a hotel room. And that's how they found them. When they went to the hotel room, they ended up finding some of Carol and Reggie's things scattered throughout the hotel room, things that they hadn't gotten around to pawning yet. And that's what caused the three of them to end up being arrested. So, like I said, that was Tiffany, Michael, and Alan. Bruce was not there at the hotel room because he had actually gone back to Jacksonville. They would end up arresting him in Jacksonville, and Bruce ended up being very crucial to the solving of this case because Bruce would be the one to take the police to the graves where Reggie and Carol had been buried alive. The bodies would end up being found on July 16th of 2005, just 8 days after they were buried. Bruce agreed to testify against the three others, and in doing so, he agreed to plead guilty to a lesser charge of second-degree murder in exchange for a 45-year prison sentence. His testimony was so crucial in the conviction of the other three. Bruce did testify that, in his opinion, Michael was the mastermind behind the whole plan. And Tiffany said that she had no idea that they were going to end up killing the couple. She thought that they were just going to rob the couple and that they were just going to burglarize the home, but she didn't know that it would result in their deaths. However, she was still found guilty of kidnapping, robbery, burglary, and first-degree murder. The other two were also found guilty of the same things, and all three of them received the death penalty. However, while the three of them were in prison awaiting execution, the Florida State Supreme Court ruled as of October 2016 that it was unconstitutional to issue a death penalty with just the majority. If it was not a unanimous decision to do the death penalty, it was not considered constitutional at the time. So because of this Supreme Court ruling and all the different nuances in it, and they would end up being resentenced. So while I can agree that maybe Michael was the mastermind of the plan, I am the most disgusted with Tiffany. And it's because she knew this couple. She was friendly with this couple. This couple was kind and compassionate to her and took them under her wing and took care of her. They treated her with such kindness, and they were good people, and she knew that they were good people. And she can say that she didn't know that they were going to be murdered. And this is all my opinion. But do I believe that she was told the plan? Yes, I do. Do I believe that she was there the days before that the grave was dug? Yes, I do. Do I believe that she was there or aware of the purchasing of the things that would go in the kill kit, like the gloves and the plastic sheeting? Yes, I do. Do I know that she was the one who rented the car to follow them to the gravesite? She was the one who is pawning their stuff. She was the one who is withdrawing money. She may not have formulated the plan, but she was complicit in the plan, and she went along with it every step of the way. And she knew these people. She loved these people. These people loved her. And to be killed in a horrific, terrifying way by somebody you love and somebody you trust and somebody you've shown kindness to is just, like I said, it's heartbreaking. It's next level heartbreaking. I hate this story so much. I mean, poor Reggie and Carol. Here they had a high school romance that was dormant for decades. They end up rekindling their old spark. They're together for like 5 years before their life is ripped away from them in a horrible way. They were kind people. They were compassionate people. And that's what ended up being their undoing. How kind and how compassionate and how wholesome they were is the thing that ended up getting them killed. And to me, that's awful. They were taken advantage of because of their kindness. And because of their kindness, they ended up dying a very horrible death. Horrible death. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Thomas and Jackie Hawks case that we talked about just a couple videos back. It was another couple who had just recently retired and they were just enjoying their time together, and then they got strapped to an anchor and dumped alive in the ocean, so they would end up drowning to death. I don't know what it is about these horrible ways of killing these older retired couples, but it needs to stop because it's breaking my heart. There's not much more I can say on this one. It's horrible. There's nothing more to say about it. And so on that note, we're just going to end it here. If this is the kind of content that you're interested in, as always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and make sure you turn on your post notification bells. That way you'll be notified the next time I sit down here for another morbid conversation. Yeah, I'm not as peppy ending this one. They're always horrible, but this one hurt me a little bit. But anyway, friends, until next time, stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you later. All right?